In this video, I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know on how to make Total Mixed Ration for cows in Farming Simulator 22. So let's get into it. Alright, let's have a look at the in-game help menu for TMR, Total Mixed Ration. So Total Mixed Ration, you can optimize your milk production for cows by feeding them Total Mixed Ration, TMR. This is the only way to gain 100% productivity. So get the ingredients, so straw, hay, silage, and mineral feed. You can harvest grass and turn it into hay yourself if your farmer has fields of grass and the required machines. It's easy to buy all the ingredients at the dealership. You can buy bales of straw, hay, and silage under objects. Bales, mineral feed is available in the pallets section. Do you have a barn with a feeding robot? Then you only need to deliver the ingredients to the barn, straw, hay, silage, and mineral feed. The robot will automatically mix the feed and feed the animals regularly if all ingredients are in stock. Do you use a mixing wagon instead of a robot? Then you need to prepare the field in a forage mixer and deliver it to the barn. In the forage mixer, you have to add straw, hay, and silage and mineral feed in the right ratio. The mixer will show you the correct mixing ratio when you are near the mixing wagon. So we'll have a look at those in detail a little bit later on, but let's move on. Okay, so as we've already discussed, the cows require silage to make TMR for their feed. So there's two ways you can make silage. It's through chaff. So we've got some corn here ready to harvest, and we've got some grass. So there's two types of silage you can do. So there's grass silage, okay, which we can cut and bale and turn into silage that way. Or we can put it into a silage bunker and let it ferment and turn into silage. Or we can cut down corn and turn it into chaff. So there's a couple of other crops that can be used to create chaff. Corn is just one of the ones that give you a pretty high yield. So I've got a little test field of corn and a little test field of grass, and we're going to show you quickly how to go about the process of making silage. So I've planted it. It plants like any other crop, so I'm not going to cover that in detail. Let's just hook straight into the harvesting and getting the silage ready. All right, so for the corn, we've got a forage harvester. So we've got the Fendt Katana. So let's get this guy turned on. Make sure we pipe out. So we're going to pipe out into the back of this trailer here, and we're going to turn the harvester on. Now I'm just going to quickly rip through, grab all this corn. You can see we're driving to the crop there. We'll start shooting out the back. So we've got the chaff symbol, which indicates that we are bringing on chaff. So basically chaff is just organic material from crop that has been chopped up into little pieces, and it forms the basis of our silage. So excuse my driving, but I'm going to quickly cut this corn down, and then we're going to go dump it into a fermentation silo. So I'll show you what that is in a second. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Alright, so we've got our chaff on board, all cut down, ready to go. So where do we put it? So we need to put it into a silage bunker. So to find them, jump into the build mode. You want to go into silos, and you want to scroll on over to the silage bunkers. So bunker silo small, medium, large. So different shapes, different configurations, all depends on what you want to do. The drive-through ones, which are these ones, can be a little bit temperamental at times when you're trying to unload it. So it's advisable not to drive over the silage heap. You want to drive into it. This one here, the bunker silo medium, is good because it has high sides and a back on it. So you can basically pack it in from the back, and your silage is not going to fall out. Okay. And then you got the large one here, which is quite big. So you can really, and then you got the really massive one, which is this one here. Okay, so they'll all function the same way and do the same thing. I'm just going to go with the smaller one because that's probably what most people are going to use, and it's the cheapest. So just pop that down. Now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive through and dump this off. So let's get this unloaded. So you can see there our chaff has come out, so quite a small load. Obviously you would get a lot more yield out of a bigger crop, and fill this thing to capacity. Alright, so let's move on to the next step. Alright, so we've got our chaff, which is sitting just here. You can see that there in the bunker. We're at 3,793 of our fill level, and we're 3% compacted. So to get silage, this chaff now has to be compacted, and then we have to blanket it, and then we have to let it ferment. So the tools you're going to need for this job, we've got a tractor with a leveling blade and a compactor on the back. So if you want to find those, they're in the tool section. So we will go into levelers for the blade. Okay, so this is just to move chaff and silage around. There's a couple of different sizes. I've just chosen the small one. And then we've got the silo compactor. So we've got this one here for 7,000, and that just attaches to the back like that. All right, so let's jump into the tractor. We are going to lower the silo compactor down, and we're going to switch back to the front blade. I'm just going to lift it up and down a little bit if we need to. Now in this case, what will happen is the silage will, so you can see that there, it'll naturally start to spread out as we drive over this a couple of times. Now if this had a higher peak on it, we'd basically just drive up and pile it up in the middle and have a slope on either side. And depending on the amount of crop you've got in there, will determine how long the compaction takes. So you can see that there, we're compacted to 100%. So we'll drive this guy out, turn him off, head back over to the bunker silo, and now we've got the option to blanket with L3. So that silage is now blanketed and it's fermenting. So let's go and sleep for 1 day and then we'll come back in and we should have some silage. Right, here we are, we slept for 1 day, we're back in the bunker. So fermenting silage, 100% complete. Now if we open up this silo, we can see that we've got silage here. So the texture has changed. We're going to open up the rest of that blanket. And now what we can do is we can come through with a front loader or some other implement to pick this up. So basically what we would need is, I'll demonstrate that with a front loader and a telehandler. So 1 minute. Right, here we are with the telehandler with the front bucket. So I've just gone for the telehandler and the universal bucket for 2,200, and this will pick up pretty much anything in the game. So basically just drive on into our silage. You can see our bucket is filling up. You can see that in there. So now what we would do is we would tip this into our forage wagon or our loading wagon, like so. And then that's one way to get our silage supply. The other way is to use the forage wagon and the milling machine, so I'll demonstrate that quickly as well. Alright, so we've got the self-propelled forage wagon or mixing wagon. So let's unfold the mixer, turn it on. We've got the milling blade in the front, which we've already talked about. So we'll just open that up so we can get into the silage bunker. Basically just drive on in, come up to where you want to grab the silage from, so you can see that's picking it up off the ground and chucking it into our wagon here. This is one way you can get your silage out of a bunker, and this is what this is designed to do. So it'll eat through your silage. So you can imagine if this was full with silage, this would just chew through it, and then you can get your TMR mixture that way. Alright, let's move on. Alright, so another way we can get silage is through grass. Okay, so we've got some grass we've planted here. We've got a mower at the ready, so we're going to cut this grass and then we're going to turn a portion of it into hay, and then a portion of it we're just going to leave as is in preparation for turning it into silage. So we're going to do silage bales, so grass silage bales to be specific. Okay, so let's unfold the mower, get this guy turned on, and I'm just going to come this way just for ease of cutting. So lower the mower. We want to make sure we've got selected work mode. So we want to do swath drop. So we've got that, so it's going to drop out the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive through here, cut that down. Pretty straightforward. So we've got our grass in a nice windrow. So you can use a windrower for this as well. It's up to you. Alright, so for this next section of grass, we're going to turn this into hay. So I've switched the mower back to wide spreading, so it's going to drop it basically the width of the mower. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mow this section of grass I've just put in. So you can see that's widespread there. Now the reason why we would do widespread is because if we're going to do hay, we need to run the tedder over it. So it's just easier to do that in this configuration rather than the windrow that we've already done. So I'm just going to quickly cut this and then we'll come back in. Alright, so we've got our widespread cut grass just here, and we've got our windrow of grass we're going to turn into a grass silage bale, and this stuff we're going to turn into hay. So what we need is a tedder. So I've got a tedder on the back of here. So if you need to find tedders, they're in the tools section. Come into tedders, which is here. So a tedder turns the grass around so it can dry faster. So basically what it does is it flips the grass over, allows it to dry, and then that turns it into hay. Okay, so let's get this lowered, turned on. Okay, so you can see that there. So what will happen is when we drive up to the grass here, it'll change texture to a lighter green, and we will end up with hay. So you can see that animation there, quite cool. So that is now hay. So if we jump out and have a quick look, it won't show you as hay currently, but that's what the hay looks like before it's picked up and baled. So I'm just going to go through and turn this into hay, and then we'll come back in. Alright, so that's now been turned into hay, so it's sitting there loosely now. We've got to windrow this, so it's easy to pick up with the bale. So let's go grab a windrower. Alright, so we've got a windrower attached to our tractor. So the one I've gone for is in the tools section under windrowers, and I've just gone for the Kuhn GA 15131 62,000. It's got a pretty decent working width, so let's unfold this. So we can see that's unfolded. Let's lower it and turn it on. Now basically what we want to do here is we want to drive over our hay and be very careful not to mix up our grass that we've just cut, because it may inadvertently change one to the other. So you wouldn't do this normally. You'd do a field of you'd do a field of grass or hay. You potentially wouldn't do both. Okay, so I'm going to windrow this up, and then we'll come back in and do the baling for both. Alright, so we're ready to bale. So I've gone for two balers, so two different ones. So we've got a small capacity round baler, so this will do, so this is actually the Pottinger Impress, so it'll do 125 centimeter bale. So this will do straw, grass or hay. Okay, then the other one we've got is the Class Roland Unirap. So a bale wrapper packs grass bales in fall so they can ferment to silage. So if we have a look at this one, so you can see on the back here, this baler has got a wrapper. Alright, the foil color in white signifies that this is a bale wrapper. Okay, so bale wrappers are generally going to be in the round baling category. So if we look at a high capacity square baler, such as the Class Quadrant, it doesn't have a bale wrapper on the back. So the bale wrapping you can wrap square bales, but it is a separate process. Okay, so just for our purposes of creating hay bales, so this is really just so you can create silage, so you can create TMR for your cows. All right, so let's get this guy turned on, turn on the baler, lower the baler, and then we basically just want to drive over our windrow of hay. Okay, so we've got a bale of hay just there, and now that can be used to form part of our TMR. Okay, right, let's go and have a look at the. Right, so this is the Class Roland with the bale wrapper on the back. So we've got our windrow of grass. We're going to turn this into grass silage. So let's turn the bale on. Let's lower the pickup, and hopefully we've got enough grass here to get one bale out, because then you can see the wrapper in action. Also helps if I probably drive a little bit straighter to get all this grass. Okay, so you can see our capacity is filling up. We're about 50%. Hopefully we can get there. Looks like we're just about, so you can see it coming out the back there. It'll load up onto the conveyor, and now what will happen is it will automatically wrap, and we can continue baling while that silage bale is being created. Okay, so just if we were doing this for real life, not in demonstration purposes, bale is now getting cut, and it should. So you can turn on automatic drop or manual drop. So we just did a manual drop there. So there we go. We have got a silage bale, so let's go over and inspect that. So silage bale fermenting. So this needs to ferment. Okay, so it'll probably take a day to ferment, and then it will turn into silage. And then we've got our hay over here ready to go as well. All right, let's move on. Alright, so how do we go about getting straw for our TMR mix? So obviously we can buy it. We've already talked about that at the shop. But basically any arable crop, so grain crop that drops straw, can be baled and turned into straw. Okay, so what things like wheat, oats, barley, and I think there's another one, but just check your in-game help if you're not sure. So we've got some wheat ready to go. So what we need to do is we need to make sure our straw swath is enabled. So you can see that there, enable straw swath. So currently what it's doing is it's spreading it. So if I turn that on, and now when I drive into the crop that I'm harvesting, we should get a nice windrow of straw dump out the back. Okay, which we've got there. Now that straw can be picked up and turned into bales, which we're going to do just in a second. So I'll let this guy finish dropping off his straw. Okay, cool. Right, let's come back in with the baler. Alright, so we've got our same baler from before. This is our round baler. So let's turn it on. Pickup's already lowered, and we're going to be picking up that straw. So hopefully we've got enough straw here for one bale. Might be a struggle, but let's see how we go. Okay, I've got a little bit there. Let's see if we can unload a partial bale. Can't get a bale there. So I'm going to just cut down the rest of this crop and then we'll get a straw bale out of here. So you should be able to unload a partial bale. Some bales you can, some balers you can, some balers you can't. So this one in particular, we need to have a full bale before we can unload. So maybe if I turn it off. Alright, anyway, that's how you get a straw bale. So obviously pick up your straw, turn it into a bale. Then you'll have bales for bedding for your animals and also to produce TMR. Alright, let's move on. Alright, so we've got all our ingredients. So we've gone through how to acquire all the ingredients for TMR. So how to make your own hay, straw, silage, etc. Now we need to talk about how to mix it up. So this section in the in-game help menu talks about using the feeding robot or a forage wagons or a mixer wagon. So we're going to talk about the mixer wagons right now. So in a later section of the video, we're going to cover the feeding robot in a lot more depth, but a lot of what we're going to talk about now in terms of TMR, so Total Mixed Ration, which will give you 100% productivity, is universal. There's just a couple of different ways you can mix it, different equipment, that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to cover now. So let's get into that. All right, so let's have a quick look at the forage wagons. So there's two different varieties in game. So if we go into the shop quickly, so if we go into vehicles, go to animals, we've got a range of forage mixer wagons, which we would consider self-propelled. So these are drivable, don't need a tractor, etc. So they range in size up to 26 cubic meters of capacity and 205 horsepower all the way down to 17 cubic meters of capacity and 175 horsepower. Okay, so they've got big mixing blades in the back there to mix up the Total Mixed Ration and forage. Obviously the bigger one, bigger capacity. Pretty straightforward. Oh, and they've also got a milling machine on the front, which we'll demonstrate in a little bit. But that where the Farsin logo and that black cover is, that's got a milling machine which you can use to empty out silage bunkers. Okay. The other option is the forage wagons, which are PTO driven, so they need a tractor to be attached. So we've got 3 there. So basically, the way you load your bales or your product is in through the top, using a front end loader or telehandler, whereas the others you can load via the milling machine on the front, and you can also drop bales in through the top. So just have a quick look at these close up so you can see what I'm talking about. So they can be loaded from the top. The one on the left here, like I said, got the milling machine, can pick things up off the ground. The trailed one needs to be manually loaded. All right, so let's have a go at manually loading that now. All right, so I've got some bales here. So I've got purchased from the shop. So I've got some hay, some silage and some straw. So if you want to find them, come into the shop, over to objects, over to bales. You've got 2 varieties. You've got the square and the round, slightly different in price and also capacity. So if you don't have straw, silage or hay available on your farm, you can purchase it at the shop. All right, so now what we've got to do is to get TMR, we need to basically take these with a telehandler. So this is perfect for this job, and add the right ratio of hay, silage and straw into our mixing wagon to get TMR. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our tractor, we're going to turn on our mixing wagon. Okay, so you can see that going there. Now I've got automatic engine start turned off, so this will run while we are not in there. So you can see that is operating there. All right, let's start with some hay. So we're just going to go 1 bale at a time and see what we get. So I've just got a bale fork for this, just to make it nice and easy for myself. And you can see why the telehandler is very useful, because we've got the reach functionality. So now if I hold that in there, you can see the hay is depleting on the right hand side, and our mixing ratio is showing 100%. Now that's showing 100% because we haven't thrown in another ingredient. Okay, so let's grab. Now from memory, hay and silage will give you TMR. Okay, and you can use the straw to pad out the rest of the mix, so you don't have to use up all your straw and hay to produce TMR, because obviously they're a lot more valuable. So if we dump that in there, just keep an eye on our ratio. So it looks like it'll take, so we've got hay and silage in there. If we want to confirm what we've got, come up to the next to it, and we can see we've got Total Mixed Ration there of 8,000 litres. All right, so if we jump back out, so we're sitting at 56% hay, 43% silage. Let's grab some straw here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and be very careful here. So I think 5,000 litres of straw is going to be too much. So what we'll do is we'll hover over the top here, lower it down just enough so it starts to deplete. So you can see that there, I'm holding it in, and once we get to about there, I'll lift that bale out, and if you can see we're probably about half full there. So if I was to leave it here like this, we would still have TMR, but what I want to do is I want to try and figure out what the ratio is. So if we put a whole straw bale in there, and then let's repeat this process. So once you get this down once for your bale size and the size of forage wagon you've got, you'll know for future how many bales of each you need, and you can very, very quickly make your TMR mix. Okay, so let's throw another hay bale in. So this will give us 2. So I think this is going to take the whole thing. Looks like it will. Yep. So now I don't need to stand there either and hold it in. I can basically just drop it off and it will be fine. Now I've got a feeling if we just put this last silage bale in, we will end up with a perfect TMR mix. So we've got 3,500 litres of silage here. So I'm just going to hover over the top, pop that in, so we can see our silage bar is increasing, and this is probably going to top off our trailer, or forage wagon at least anyway. So let's turn off the telehandler, go and inspect our forage. So 21,000 litres of total mixed ration. So I'm just going to turn this off. We can see that there we are full, and once again total mixed ration 21,000. So the recipe was for this particular size of mixing wagon: 2 hay, 2 silage, 1 straw, gives you perfect TMR. And you can see that in the top there. Beautiful, beautiful cow food. All right, let's move on. All right, let's take a look at the forage mixing wagon. So this is the self-propelled mixing wagon. So if we just jump in here and have a quick look, you can see we've got the mixing tub in the back there, and we've got a milling blade on the front. So let's just turn this on. So start the engine, unfold the mixing wagon, turn the mixer on, and then we've got a blade here which allows us to pick up things from the floor. So particularly this is going to be for silage. So if you're in a silage bunker, we've got a silage bale here that we're going to turn into TMR. We've got some straw, and we've also got some hay. So in regards to using this machine and the bales, all we need to do is turn it on like so, drive up to what we want to consume. So you can see there we've taken on some silage. Next thing we're going to do is take on some straw. So our straw ratio is through the roof here. So what we're going to do is grab some hay. So I've got some hay piled up here as well. So I'm going to have to probably get some more silage for this. So let's pull back out of there. I'll grab another silage bale. So to grab a silage bale, come into the shop, over to objects, purchase the silage bale there. So the silage bales are the white ones wrapped together. Now what we want to do here is we want to get our silage up. So our TMR ratio is going to be bang on where it needs to be. So if I pull out now, you can see there that we are, so I'll just turn this off quickly. So you can see our mixing ratio. So we've got 43% hay, 34% silage, and 22% straw. So what we've got on board is TMR. So if we want to confirm that, basically all we do is jump out, stand next to the machine, and you can see in the bottom right hand corner there, total mixed ration is the mix of food. Okay, and we've got 9,657 litres. Now if I go back in here, turn this on, and consume some more straw, what'll happen is it'll throw our ratio out. So see how that bar's gone red on the straw there? So that signifies we're no longer making TMR, and this is most likely going to be forage. So you can see that there in the right hand corner. So forage gives you a lower productivity for your cows versus TMR. So TMR is ideal for milk, and it will give you the maximum productivity. Okay, so basically what you can do is you can do it this way, or you can load your pallets or your bales directly into the mixing wagon through the back, or through the top, sorry. However, this machine with the milling blade on the front is perfectly designed for this sort of job and working out of silage bunkers. Okay, so that's a little overview of the mixing wagon. Let's move on. All right, so we've talked about the mixing wagons. Let's take a look now at the mixing ratios, and specifically which combination of straw, hay and silage will give you either TMR or forage. So I've got 4 mixing wagons here, so it doesn't matter if they're the self-propelled or the tractor-trailer combination, the information is going to be the same. So let's have a look at these in depth. All right, number 1, we've got Total Mixed Ration, and we've got hay, and we've got silage. So the ratios aren't exactly perfect on each of these examples, but it's close enough to tell us what type of feed mix we're going to get for each one. So this has got hay and silage, no straw, and I've omitted the mineral feed from most of these just to keep it consistent, but the mineral feed doesn't have any bearing on the composition of the silage. It just gives the silage a boost. Okay, so position 1, we've got Total Mixed Ration, so hay and silage together, no straw, and just pretend there's no mineral feed in there. All right, position 2, we've got forage. So we've got hay and straw. So hay and straw will give you forage without silage. Okay, so there's no silage in here. Moving on to position 3. So position 3, we have forage. This time we have silage and straw, but no hay. Okay, so that gives us forage. And then the last one, which is TMR. So Total Mixed Ration. So we've got the right proportions of hay, silage, and straw. Okay, so depending on the ratio that you mix with, you've got to be very careful, otherwise you'll end up with forage, even if you are trying to get TMR. So it's very important to stay within the little arrow markers to get the right ratio. So if we just recap, position 1, we've got TMR, so that's hay and silage. Position 2, we've got forage, which is hay and straw. Position 3, we've got forage, which is silage and straw. And then position 4, we've got TMR, which is hay, silage, and straw. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, so we talked about the different feed types. Now we're going to talk about the adding of the feed and the effect that it has on effectiveness. So we've got Total Mixed Ration, hay, and grass. And there's a 4th type in there, which is forage. Okay, so I've got 4 trailers loaded up here. So if we go from here, we've got TMR, then we've got forage next door, then we've got hay, then we've got grass. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to load these in. And what I should also mention is we've got 1 brown Swiss, 18 months old, in 4 identical pen setups using the pasture. So we're just going to observe what's happening with the food. So this will be the same in terms of loading of the food for each of the breeds. So I'm just going to load this in. All right, that's the grass. So let's do the hay next. So what we want to observe is basically how they impact the productivity, and just to sort of show you the loading operation. So this is the hay going in to pasture number 2. All right, now this is the forage. So we're going to have a chat about forage at the end of this section. So this is Total Mixed Ration. So this is the ideal mix for the dairy cows. So let's see if we can get this unloaded. So we can pop a bit in here. So that's accepted it. All right, so we're not going to fill that up all the way. We're going to try and dump this into our newly placed barn, just for testing purposes. All right, here we are at the barn. So Total Mixed Ration, start overloading. So you can see the cow barn will accept TMR. Okay, so if we go and check out, so you can see that's worked. We have a look at our cow pasture. So we've got the one with hay filled up here, the one with grass here, and then we've got the one with the TMR, which we've spread across the cow barn and the pasture. Okay. All right. So one thing I wanted to talk about was the feed types, and I wanted to expand on the forage situation. Okay. So forage can be used as a food. Now, there's a couple of ways you can get forage, which is different to TMR. So TMR is, like we've talked about with the cow feeding robot and the other recipes, a combination of straw, hay, silage, and mineral feed, depending on whether you're using the auto feeding robot or manually mixing. Okay, we've got a couple of forage wagons here with various mixtures of hay, straw, silage, etc. to demonstrate how forage can be used. Okay, so we've got forage here, which is hay and straw. Okay, so that's considered forage. Then we've got another forage wagon here with hay and silage. Okay, now that's actually considered TMR. Okay, so to get TMR, we don't have to have straw, but this is the bare minimum. Then we've got a forage wagon which has got forage in it, which is silage and straw. Okay, so silage and straw will make forage. And then we have a failed TMR mix. And what I mean by a failed TMR mix is, on purpose, I've got these ratios out of whack. Okay, so I haven't got the correct amounts of straw in there and the other components to balance out to get the perfect ratio. So you would consider this potentially failed TMR, which gives you forage. Okay, Now the question is, which of these forage can we feed to the cows over here? So we've got a selection of dairy and a selection of beef cattle, both 5 of each, both 18 months old. So they'll be in line for consumption of food. So let's go through and have a look which ones can be fed and which ones not. So this is forage, I believe. Let's double check that. Yeah, so this is forage. So what we should be able to do here is drive up to the food trigger and we should get the overloading icon. Okay, so we can overload this type of forage, which is hay and straw. So let's put a bit in. So if I go, so I'm not going to do the whole lot, just want to demonstrate each one. So hay and straw will go in. Okay, what's the next one we've got? Okay, so this one is Total Mixed Ration. So we know this will go in. So let's just do our due diligence and double check. So Total Mixed Ration, there we go. No problem there. All right, number 3. So I believe this is forage. So this is forage and this is silage and straw. Okay, so let's see if this will go in. Okay, so as you can see here, the silage and straw mix will not be received by the cow pasture. So we'll make sure we're just tipped on the left there. So we're not getting the overloading trigger. So that indicates to me that this variety of forage cannot be fed. So what we'd have to do here is we'd have to throw some hay in there to salvage that mix. So just in case for whatever reason you decided you were going to try and feed that, you'd be unsuccessful. Right, so let's have a look at our failed TMR mix. So this is considered forage. So it's got all 3 ingredients, however the quantities are incorrect. So my estimation is this should go in no problem. Okay, so let's pull on up here, see if we get the trigger. Yep, so we're getting the overloading trigger there. Okay, so that'll be considered a food option. And I am just gonna check the straw and silage mix one more time, just to make sure. Okay, so just double checking the straw and silage mix. Definitely not received. Okay, so that's pretty conclusive. All right, let's move on. So there you have it, guys. Everything you need to know on how to make the ingredients for TMR, how to mix TMR, and then how to make sure you get TMR instead of forage for your cow's productivity. So thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, leave a like on it. If you've got any questions regarding anything in the video, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. And consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.